Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS reminder. File and pay 2019 business tax by July 15th. 2020 estimated tax also due. IR 2020-154, July 14th, 2020, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today reminded business taxpayers that their 2019 tax returns and tax payments, as well as the first 2020 estimated tax payments, are due by Wednesday, July 15th. So note there's been some extensions here, and they're focusing in on the business tax returns at this time. So for example, if you file a business tax return on a Schedule C for a sole proprietorship, then you've got the tax return that's going to be due on July 15th, 2019. And if there's any payments that are due at that point in time, then you want to pay them at that point in time. They also pushed out the payments, the estimated payments for 2020. So let's just recap this. In 2019 tax return, if you're a business, then you might have a sole proprietorship business that you report on a Schedule C with it, for example. Then it's usually due on April of 2020, but then the due date got pushed out until July. So now you got the tax return that you got to file there in July. You might still have some payments then that you need to be making for the 2019 tax return. You need to make those typically by July if possible in order to avoid penalties and interest. And then you have the 2020 taxes, which you're going to file for in 2021 in April. If there's no weirdness that happens like normal, like April 15th, you file 2021, you would be filing for the 2020 taxes, but and you usually make the payments during the year, but they extended those out as well. So those estimated tax payments, if you're, say, a sole proprietor where you actually have to write them a check or make some other type of payment to the IRS on a quarterly basis, they've extended the first 2 quarters. So now you got the 2 quarters are due on July 15th. So a business at this point could find themselves in a bit of a problem of a situation at this point in time, because the payments might have been extended, the filing deadline extended, and everything's kind of fallen together. At July 15th, the IRS is saying, hey, we're back online, and this is when we're going to stop doing extensions, apparently. So that could mean that people might owe money at that point in time. So what you want to do is try to avoid penalties and interest. So what you want to do then is make sure that you file what you can in order to avoid the penalties and interest related to the filing penalty, and then make any payments that you can at that point in time so that you can avoid penalty and interest related to payments. If you can't make any payments at that point in time, then you want to see if you can set up a payment plan. If you need to file but you don't have your books together as of yet, you can still go on extension, which will help to avoid penalties related to late filing. However, it will not remove the penalties related to the late payments. So you're going to want to set up, make a payment if you're going to go on extension if you can. Also, when you make the payments, if you have payments for things that are due, such as 2019 tax return, 2020 estimates, and possibly if you have any other kind of agreements that are going for as well, they all are coming due around the same point in time, then just make sure that when you make the payment, you're applying it to the right place, so that the IRS, when you make the payment, what you don't want to have happen is the IRS doesn't know where it goes, they apply it to the wrong place, and then maybe they give it back to you or something funny happens, and then they charge you penalties and interest like you didn't pay them or something like that. You want to make sure that if you owe them for multiple years, that you're making the payment, you're applying it to multiple years. It'd be best if you could, you want to keep a record on that on your side, if when possible, as best as possible, so that when you communicate with the IRS, you could say, hey, here's the payment that I applied to here, and you can kind of work that, be able to work that out more clearly, have a better idea of what is going on. Back to the text. The July 15th due date generally applies to any tax return or tax payment deadline that was postponed due to COVID-19. On April, the IRS said that this postponement applied to all taxpayers that had a filing or payment deadline falling on or after April 1st, 2020 and before July 15th, 2020. No late filing penalty, late payment penalty, or interest will be due for payments prior to July 15th, which is nice. But now the deadline has come, so the penalties will start rolling in, it looks like, after that one. So you want to avoid the penalties. Back to the text. Corporations, trusts, and estates, as well as individuals and other non-corporate tax filers, qualify for the extra time. A complete list of qualifying filing and payment deadlines, there's a link to them here, are available at IRS.gov/coronavirus. There's a link to that here as well. Businesses that need a tax filing extension beyond the July 15th deadline can get one by filing Form 7004. An extension to file is not an extension to pay. To avoid interest charges and any possible late payment penalties, be sure to estimate any tax liability and pay by the July 15th deadlines. Individuals who file Form 1040, including sole proprietors, farmers, and landlords, can get an extension by filing Form 4868. The fastest and easiest way to meet the July 15th deadline is to file returns and pay any taxes due electronically. For more information on e-file and payment options, visit IRS.gov/e-file. There's a link to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.